Now, it's been a while and I know I'm probably late and I've watched a few other Abyss guides out there, but better late than never. So, the new Abyss 4 version 5.5 has just arrived, and here's the guide video that you can watch all the tips and tricks you can do in order to get your clear and potentially the 36 stars. But before we get started, the disclaimer. So first of all, I'm gonna assume that you have enough characters that are built well enough to take up the challenge for both floor 11 and floor 12. I will disregard floor 9 and floor 10 in this case. Number 2, this guide only serves to provide an insight on different strategies that you can employ to clear both floor 11 and floor 12. Getting 9 stars is usually a mix of amount of skill, account investment, and sometimes both. Also, game knowledge is a part of it, but that's what this guide video is for. And lastly, continuous runs are absolutely not necessary to obtain all the stars provided. This refers to only running one team per half and clearing them in one singular go without doing any sort of full team resets. Because the stars that are obtained per chamber are recorded upon getting them once, you can try out a lot of different teams over multiple runs to see what can help you achieve your goal in the long run, regardless of whether it's a clear or the 36 stars. But without further ado, let's jump straight to floor 11. So for floor 11, the leyline disorder is that all party members gain a 75% cryo damage bonus, which means for any cryo enjoyers, you can benefit the most out of this buff. Now before we get started, let's take a look at the enemy lineup. My personal recommendation is that the first half puts a lot of emphasis on running any sort of crowd control units, obviously being a Venti Shield Abyss, but other units like Kazuha and Sucrose are very much welcome. But if you don't have any of those, you can consider running Electro Charge for the first half in order to tackle all the challenges that you have to deal with. For the second half, you have to absolutely bring Freeze because you're going to be going against the Trichromatic Patui Legends from Natlan, which has very strong Electro and Pyro Shield, and if you do not run a Hydro unit to break the Pyro Shield or a Cryo unit to break the Electro Shield, you will not be doing as much damage as you do because they do gain a very high amount of resistance, and also no other elements can break it normally like the other elements, like let's say Pyro against Electro and all the stuff. So ideally try to bring at least a Hydro and a Cryo unit for the second half. So for Chamber 1, the first half you have to kill 24 enemies. It's a bunch of Saurian warriors. They spawn clockwise, or for context, the first wave will spawn in front and then afterwards to the right, to the back, and eventually to the left. You'll be dealing with 6 of them per wave. They'll spawn one by one after killing each one, so the rest is pretty straightforward. Just try to kill them methodically and try to take care of any stragglers if they're separated from the previous group, but the rest is pretty straightforward. Of course, Sucrose Taser here is absolutely amazing, and once you're done with this half, we'll go to the second. So second half, you do have the Electro Lava Chol, which what you want to do first is that you want to actually go to its back and do enough damage to attract its attention, because it will always do the leap move that will actually do damage to the monolith if it happens to be along its path. So if you do enough damage, you can actually bait the Lava Chol to jump towards the side or preferably towards the back of the wall in the Abyss, and then you can immediately begin your rotation to just start doing damage and killing it. Afterwards, there'll be a Ruin Grader all the way to the back side of the floor. The rest is pretty straightforward. You just go to it and don't go too far because otherwise it'll start doing the charging move, which may actually hit the monolith along the way. It does have the whole weak point mechanics, but once again, Ruin Robot weak point mechanics are not too relevant because it doesn't provide any sort of notable advantage. Once you take care of the Ruin Grader, the Ruin Guard will spawn at the front side of the floor. Once again, also pretty straightforward. Be sure to do enough damage to attract its attention so that it doesn't actually attack the monolith, but instead it attacks you. And once you take care of all 3 of them, we'll move on to Chamber 2. So for the first half, you have to kill 32 slimes, a mix of Hydro and Pyro slimes, which are immune to their respective element. They spawn in groups of 4, so you'll have to deal with a total of 8 waves. Now the Pyro slime, you can actually put up its Pyro state by applying Hydro, but otherwise everything is pretty straightforward. They will actually spawn clockwise, so preferably if you wanna go against the first half, try to bring a team that can apply enough damage that is able to kill both the Hydro and the Pyro slime, but otherwise the rest is pretty much straightforward. You can always focus one or the other, like let's say your Hydro abilities are up, so you can try to focus on the Pyro slime first and let the other slime spawn, and then you can maybe go back to your, say, other DPS to deal with the Pyro slime eventually with the right elements. But honestly, it's pretty straightforward, so we'll move on to the second half. So the second half, you start with the Construction Specialist mech, which is Pyro with the Numa alignment. Of course, hitting it with Uja twice, which is the dark color, will actually disable its Pyro attacks, moving it to physical melee attacks. Characters that can apply Uja include Chevero's skill, Horan's skill, Purna's normal attack in her damage mode, Lynette's elemental skill, Navia's skill, Siege Wind skill, and lastly, Rise the Burst. However, this is not necessary for you to play around the mechanic if it is for the purpose of clearing with the fastest time possible. Afterwards, the second wave will spawn the Eremite Stern Enchanter, which is the Abyss variant. Now, it does have lower physical resistance compared to the other elements, and it will start off spawning its Geo Abyssal Consecrated Crocodile. So what you want to do is you want to focus on the Geo Crocodile first, because killing it will make the Geo Chancer guy lose a lot of HP, get stunned for 10 seconds, and he will also lose a lot of resistance, which allows you to do much more damage. And lastly, you do have the Consecrated Vulture, which starts in the phagocytic phase, which gives it boosted resistance, thus making it take less damage than usual. It also has very high pyro resistance. So once its HP is low enough or enough time has passed, it will do its special attack where it will spawn this little block known as the phagocytic block. You can break this block with elemental attacks, and then once you break the block, you can hit the vulture to make it lose a lot of HP, resistance, and of course make it stun for the next 10 seconds. The block will break immediately in one pyro hit or 6 other elemental hits for all the other elements. And of course, if you fail to break it in time, it will reabsorb the block and gain all its boosted resistance back. And once you're done, we'll move on to Chamber 3. So the Venti Shield first half of Chamber 3, you have to kill 60 of these enemies, which spawns in groups of 6. So you have to deal with a total of 10 waves. Now, this part extremely favors AoE units or AoE teams with crowd control units, like obviously it's a Venti Abyss, and of course there's Kazuha and Sucrose. Sucrose Electrocharge is a team that I highly recommend, and in terms of the spawning order, they generally spawn clockwise, and of course because they're human enemies they take more physical damage, but it's not too relevant in this state. So if you don't have Venti, you could consider running Kazuha. If you say you run in an Alucino team or a team that favors quick swapping, you can always occasionally use Kazuha, swap to Kazuha and use his skill to group a few enemies together and try to deal with multiple of them at the same time to have a better chance at actually getting a 3-star for this chamber. Otherwise, you could consider running any Electrocharge teams, because Electrocharge acts kind of like a taser to actually link the damage in between. So the damage is rather distributed, but in this case it is very good because you can actually deal with multiple enemies at the same time. And of course, if you have certain Electro units like Ororon or most notably Beidou, you are going to have a very good time at killing multiple enemies at the same time due to the nature of their abilities. But if you're able to clear this within 90 seconds or 1.5 minutes, that will be the most ideal for you, or maybe in 2 minutes would be okay too. And once you're done, we can move on to the second half. Now, the second half is the reason why I highly recommend, no, it's not even a recommendation, it's an absolute must for you to bring at least 2 units that are able to create the freeze reaction. So you start off with the Anemo Operative. Of course, Anemo Operative, there's nothing too special about it, just don't get Bond of Life applied to you, otherwise she'll do boosted damage on your active character, which will basically have a chance to actually kill you. And if you do have the Bond of Life effect on your character, as indicated by this icon, you can use healing in order to remove it. And after you're done, they will spawn the 2 halves of the Polychrome Tri-Star Local Legends. Both will start with activating their respective shield, and of course use the Hydro for the Pyro shield and use the Cryo for the Electro shield. Otherwise, you're never going to be able to kill them in time, and it's possible for your team to not even be able to get the 2 stars. Now what you want to do is you want to go for the Pyro Gunner by running into him. If it's possible, you can try to make him face towards the Electro Hammer so that he will dash back towards his allies. However, this is not too relevant because the Electro Hammer will actually try to chase you, so just focus on breaking their shields, and maybe if you're running your Cryo units, you want to wait for the Electro Hammer to actually come to you, and then once he's near you, you can use your Cryo abilities in order to break the shield, and that will actually kind of position them really close to each other, so very nice grouping right there, which allows you to do maximum damage to both of them in order to get the 3-minute clear. But do be careful for the Electro Hammer, because if you do kill the Pyro Gunner early, he will provide an attack buff to his Electro Hammer friend, which makes it possible for him to essentially one-shot you with his gigantic hammer of his. But otherwise, the rest is very much straightforward, and then we'll move on to floor 12. So the leyline disorders for floor 12 are that first half we have characters elemental skill geo damage will be increased by 75%, and the only units that can really take advantage of this would probably be like Ningguang, but not really, Geo Traveler, and of course Navia. For the second half, the character's elemental skill cryo damage will be increased by 75%, and at the moment there is no one that can really take advantage of this, and of course the one that can take advantage of this is not even out yet, so you basically pretend that the second half buff doesn't exist. Now for Chamber 1, the first half, we of course have the Hydro Tulpa, which is obviously immune to Hydro. He does do attacks that can do big damage with massive AoE, and if you're using Bennett Burst, so do try to be careful because there's a chance that he could actually one-shot you through Vaporize. So he does summon the half Tulpa every now and again, and if you break this guy with the appropriate elemental reaction, you can prevent the Tulpa from absorbing it and becoming bigger and gaining an attack buff and bigger AoE for a few attacks. So that's something that you don't really want to happen if you do want to stay alive. The fun thing is that if you are out of its attack range, it will try to teleport to you, which could be useful, but in this case, what I'll be demonstrating will not really be too relevant. Otherwise, if you do run a Hydro unit, obviously Nuvolet can't really work on the first half, like Morlani because he's immune to Hydro, but if you do run a Pyro unit, you'll be getting free Vapes or any sort of Hydro reactions. And for now, I'll be moving on for the attack pattern demonstration in order to teach you how to dodge its attacks and try to play around its mechanics. So I'm going to start off by teaching you the attack patterns, right? So we're going to use Chevreuse so I don't die. I'll spawn immediately. This one should be the one slam attack, which is very much straightforward for you to dodge. And then this one will be a 2-hit combo, and then it'll swing immediately afterwards. You can dodge that if you're skilled enough. And I reckon this one is the other attack where it tries to summon this. You can just walk out or use your elemental burst, but I don't really recommend that. And of course, there's the Hydro Tulpa over there, which if it does have a mini Tulpa, it'll try to spawn and absorb it. And if you do absorb it, he's going to do a lot of damage to you, which I'll be showing the strategy like right after this. So 1, 2, and I should be taking like 30k damage, so I'll be close to dead. And of course, if you're a bit too far, he'll try to do the range attack. There is a mini Tulpa indicated by this arrow all the way to the side of your screen, which means he will try to teleport there immediately afterwards. So I'm going to try to dodge all these attacks first. Oh, whoops. I literally died. It's fine. It's for the sake of demonstration. So it's always going to teleport to the other side. Now, what I'm going to show you is the demonstration of how you want to play around, keeping him at the center of the floor without really moving too far away. So we're going to start off with the rotation. Dodge this one. I'm running Bennett Burst because I like doing damage. So I can just try dodge most of the attacks because I can do that. But if you can't do that, you can consider trying to go for like a defensive unit. I'm just going to dodge this one right here. So you saw that I break the Tulpa at the side. Generally after the first 2 attacks, it will spawn like another Tulpa. So right afterwards, it'll probably spawn a mini Tulpa immediately. So try to watch to the side. And it should be one at a distance. And he will try to go to me because I'm too far, but it's not too far. It's pretty fine. And now there's no Tulpa, he will try to continue doing his attacks, so the rest is pretty much straightforward. Around now, we should be getting a Tulpa very soon, right over there. But he will probably do 1 or 2 attacks, so I'm just going to relax right here, and we should be good. So generally, the tip is that every 2 attacks, just watch for your surroundings, and it will spawn a mini Tulpa somewhere here or there, sometimes nearby, sometimes not. So what you want to do is that whenever the Tulpa is actually in the middle of attack, what you want to do is kind of move away from him and try to break the mini Tulpa. And as he finishes the attack, you can go back to him. So this will prevent him from going too far or teleporting to the other side of the map. This is extremely helpful for any sort of like circle impact teams for like Bennett, etc. So generally, the idea of the tip is that every 2 attacks, just watch for a surrounding, break the mini Tulpa only when the big Tulpa is actually doing an attack so that it will stay at the center. And otherwise, we'll move on to the second half. So for the second half, we do have the Electro Abyss Lecter. If it does any sort of Electro Orb attacks, try to dodge it because it will actually drain your entire team's energy by, I believe, a flat number of 20 if you do get hit by a single one of them. So if you're bad at dodging, honestly just try to get good, or if possible, stagger him on the first phase, because in the worst case scenario, you'll get hit by like multiple orbs in this one attack and you'll probably lose a lot of energy, and that's not exactly a good thing. And of course, once his HP is low in phase 1, it will slowly enter the shield phase, doing a massive AoE explosion, summoning an Electro Shield. Elements like Pyro, Cryo, and Dendro will break it the best because it is the fastest, and all the other elements will also break it decently well, but definitely not as effective as the former. And of course, Electro and Hydro doesn't exactly break it, but Hydro will wear out its shield by triggering Electro Charge. And if you don't have any sort of like Pyro unit, it is possible to use certain Anemo Elemental Bursts in order to swirl Pyro under Bennett Burst. For example, if you use Kazuha's Burst when he has Pyro applied onto him, or when you use Sucrose's Burst and you have Pyro on your Sucrose and you stand right under the little core of the butterfly, and the burst should be able to absorb Electro. The same logic applies for Venti's Burst for elemental absorption, or if you happen to run some sort of melt team with Sunfired, which involve Jean's and Bennett's Burst, that is also pretty well. And of course, the attack, it will always start off with the expanding orb attack, which will drain your energy, so you can try to use the elemental burst or time your dodge in order to prevent the energy sapping ability. But once you're done, the second wave will be the Millennial Pearl Seahorse, and the first 5 or 6 seconds, it will have very high resistance and it will not have spawned the Pearl just yet. So you can use this time to try to generate all the energy you need in order to get your burst ready. And once it starts, the first move will always be where it'll just slightly dodge back, so you can start using your abilities and try to target the Electro Pearl and break it with the appropriate elements. Obviously, Pyro, Cryo, and Dendro is going to be the fastest. Hydro doesn't exactly work on it, I believe, and of course, Anemo and Geo is going to take forever, so try to bring any of the first 3 elements. And then the rest is very much straightforward, and for the attack pattern, I'll be giving a few other extra tips based on that. So we'll try to get all our elemental bursts up. So we'll just wait for him to do his move, and it'll spawn a Pearl. I'll start immediately doing that. Use my abilities. And we'll start focusing on breaking the Pearl at the moment, like just right now. So of course, he's not quite there yet. So it should be doing the move soon. Okay. So once its thing is about at 1/3, it will try to do the jumping move. It'll probably be a demo like right afterwards, but I think it should be fine. So we got this out of the way. Now there's an electro field there, so I'm going to try to avoid putting the shield there so we can get the electro move. And let's wait for it to move a little bit. We'll try to stagger with this. If it does a dash back, it's gonna... Yep, actually, that's the first time I did that. So if it does the weird dashing back thing, it will actually try to dash really far. So you want to save your staggering abilities here, which in this case is Rosaria's Burst and what's the other one called? Rosaria's Burst and of course Dendro Traveler's skill. Try to trigger the Hyper Bloom first. Now, I don't think I was successful in getting the... What's the word for it? Getting the 36 stars for this one, but I think it should be possible in this case. Just barely, I think. Yeah. Actually, I couldn't get this in the previous recording, but yeah, hopefully the tips are very useful for the attack patterns and a few things you can do in order to really increase your chances to actually get the 3-star on Chamber 1. But if everything is clear, we'll move on to Chamber 2. So Chamber 2, for the first half, we do have the Natlan robot returning again. His name is really long, but I'm just going to say this. Secret Source Automaton Configuration Device. Okay. So it starts off with very much boosted resistance. I don't think the value itself changed, so it should have about 60% resistance to everything at base. I will go over the attack patterns later, but for now, obviously you do know that after a few attacks, it'll start the pillar, and I'll be doing a short demonstration section for every unit that I can probably demonstrate in order to teach you how to climb the pillars. Of course, all Natlan units have a few categories, so units like Malvuika, Shilonen, and Kachina can simply climb on the pillar itself. Masters of the Nightwind units like Sitlali and Ororon, you can hold the jump button in order to fly up in the air to actually reach the pillar. Casca herself can simply just fly. Inish can use his whole elemental skill to kind of grapple up. And of course, we do have Morlani with having the high jump feature, so the rest is pretty straightforward with her elemental skill. And then we do have the Blinker units, notably Lanyan, Chiori, Alhaitham, and Keqing, where you can hold their elemental skill upwards in order to teleport on the pillar. And for the jumpers or the flyers, Shen Yun can use her triple skill, and then if you want to stay on the pillar, you could try to use the normal attack if you are not sure whether you might slip off or not, or if you want to make things easy, you could probably use her elemental burst to get a high leap. Of course, units like Gaming, you can just use the elemental skill into the pillar to leap up. Wanderer, you can just fly up in the air. Kazuha, just fly up with his skill either. Xiao with his elemental burst. And Venti lastly with his elemental skill hold. And then we do have the construct units. Albedo, you can just put the flower down, stand on it, and wait for the elevator to lift you up. Zhongli with his pillar, just climb the pillar, just like how you have Geo Traveler with his rock. You can also climb that too. And the special one for Kirara, you can hold your elemental skill to enter the transport mode. And then what you want to do is you want to look for the lower ledge and hold the forward button and then press the jump. This will allow Kirara to jump higher than usual and allow her to actually grab onto the lower part of the ledge, which actually lets her jump on the pillar naturally. And of course, if you don't want to use any of these specific units or you don't have these units in your team, there's of course the non-conventional method where you can climb on this tiny little ledge on the side. Just like a lot of other content creators, I do find more success running female characters over male characters. Short models are probably the most successful one, so there's also that. Then there's the medium height characters. So what you want to do is you want to kind of face the pillar flat to the right side of this little ledge thing, and then you want to kind of just be perpendicular or kind of just like staring into the pillar like to the left, and then just try to jump and hold on to the ledge. Don't run, don't do anything, just simply jump, walk and jump, and you should be able to climb up. Now, if you're finding a bit of difficulty for male characters, you're not alone. So generally female characters tend to have a bit more success in climbing. And of course, the footage playing right now is the way that you can climb up with the tall male characters. They do need to get a bit of a running start to jump on this small little ledge to climb it, but if that's something that you want to invest yourself, you could always test it in the overworld variant and practice there before you jump straight into the abyss. And after that, we're going to jump on to the attack pattern. So I'm going to demonstrate all of its different attacks as well as the patterns before it actually enters the pillar phase. And of course, a few tips here and there for you to kind of play around the pillar phase to save a bit of time whenever you do actually manage to bring it down. So we're going to start off, we're not going to do any sort of attacks. I'm just going to put a random official so that I can get to the energy back. So this is the mortar move. You just watch the circle on the ground and dodge at the last second. Same thing again. Just wait for it to go to the outer rim and then you can just quickly dash 3 times and you'll be done. Now afterwards, it never does the same attack twice, so it'll probably do the spinning laser move. So you want to watch until the black orb at the center becomes really big and really dark. But it only does this like twice, so if you want to dodge, you can kind of stay in the middle. This is the third move. It always does 3 attacks. That's the swing into the triple shot. And after it does 3 moves, it will immediately summon the laser. Well, of course, it starts off with the pillar dash. Okay. Now we'll try to use Chevreau again. Climb up this side and go. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start off with Visual Burst and do this. If you do use the elemental skill, you should be fine on the other parts. But yeah, other than that, basically just use your skill on the second pillar and the rest is pretty straightforward. Hopefully this part helps you guys determine how you want to play around this moveset. But if you do have Natlan units to play around the whole Night Soul mechanic, you didn't really need this tip. But this is mostly for those who don't really intend to run Natlan units. Otherwise, we'll move on to the next part. For the second half, we'll start off with the Dendro Suppression Specialist mech. So it spawns slightly towards the back of the chamber. You can play around the Uja mechanic where you apply like Uja to it 2 times, aka dark mode, in order to stop it from using elemental attacks, which makes it do physical, but not necessary. But the rest is pretty straightforward. You kill him and then you'll get the fluid avatar of lava. Now, aside from having high pyro resistance, it does have a tendency to teleport, so you can stagger it with certain things like, reactions like Overloaded, or certain attacks that can do enough poise damage, with the examples being Aya Burst, Xingqiu's Burst, Beidou Burst, Bennett Burst, and of course plunging attacks and certain charge attacks from certain characters, whichever that fits. Mostly melee characters like swords or of course claymore units. So the one tip I did learn, credits to Rayvon's guide on this one, is that these guys will try to turn to you if you go around them, which actually delays their ability to do attacks. So if you are using certain teams that lack the ability to stagger them, it is ideal for you to try to spend a bit of stamina to try to just kind of ring around the Rosie and prevent it from moving if you can't prevent it from teleporting. And afterwards, if it's close to death, you want to try to gain a bit of energy back, because the third enemy is going to be the Thundering Wayob manifestation, which does spawn a bit in the front. Its first move will always be that it will start with a move called the Trials attack, which saps all energy within a specific range from all characters in the field and generate a non-elemental shield. If you apply enough damage to this shield, he will actually be staggered, lose quite a good amount of resistance, and will spawn or create 90 base energy in the form of energy particles and energy orbs. You have about 13 seconds to break it before it tries to convert the remaining white shield into an electro shield. While the shield itself is not really the big part of the problem, it's really just letting him get past the trial will leave you behind with little to no energy, so you do want to keep that in mind. Of course, if you're running some sort of range unit with elemental skills that can basically attack him from range, you can actually exit out of its trial arena as indicated by the visual like radius. So you can actually generate energy, because what it does is that he doesn't prevent you from generating energy, but rather the field actually occasionally saps your energy at certain intervals. So if you're out of the range, you can actually still gain energy, which is something that I don't think a lot of people really know. And of course, there's a tip from Rave on here. I'll play a quick clip. It is possible for you to basically stagger it once its wings it's down, but that is if you want to play around it. Of course, certain abilities like I mentioned just now can stagger him out of the special energy sap move, but if you want to try that, you can always go check out Ravon's link. I'll leave a link down to the video in the description below. And lastly, you can use freeze. If you can run a freeze team, make sure you maintain the aura 100% with a very consistent amount of hydro and cryo, so you should be able to kill it before it even does the energy sap move in the first place. But once you're done with this guy, you are done with chamber 2, and we'll move on to chamber 3. So for chamber 3, we start off, we do have the 2 mimic boars. It does have a move on the second move, I believe after the first move, where it'll try to dash around you towards the map or something. Basically, it moves around. So just try to stay in between both of them, do damage to both of them at the same time, and they are rather squishy, so it should be quite easy for you to actually deal with both of them at the same time. Now the tricky part is this one. You're going to have to deal with the second wave, which are the Phantasm local legends. Now these guys are of course immune to hydro, and they are permanently hydro infused, so you can apply like things like vaporize with like units like Shangling or whatnot, but they're also immune to frozen. So generally when these guys spawn, you do want to go to the range phantasm, aka the teapot guy, because the melee guy will always go to you, and this will allow you to group them both together and take care of both of them at once. I would argue, I think a lot of people would agree with this, is that the biggest challenge is trying to stay alive, of which I'll probably show a few attack patterns that you can probably try to play around if you're not running a defensive unit like a healer or a shielder. Okay, so now we're just going to relax here with Chevreau. Dodge sideways like that. If you can iframe a bit, and it'll try to use a shotgun move. And of course, it'll try to expand again. I think I'm failing really badly right now. So I'll try to do the shotgun move. It always alternates between the expanding move and the shotgun move if you're near enough. So you can really just play around that. And of course, the melee guy will try to go for you. But the rest is pretty straightforward. So for the second half, you're going to start off with 2 waves of the Xuanwen Beast, which does have a high hydro resistance. Of course, the mechanic that it does have is that if you do apply frozen on top of it and you apply other elements in order to break the frozen state by applying things like shatter with like heavy attacks or plunge, or reactions like melt, superconduct, swirl, or crystallize, you will stun it for a little bit. I don't think it loses any sort of resistance, but at the very least, you'll be able to keep them from moving. The general strategy is that you do want to go behind them and try to stay in between them, but try not to stagger them too much. And if you do use abilities that will knock them back a little bit, make sure you try to knock one back into the other in order to keep them grouped. But otherwise, these enemies are pretty straightforward. And here comes the annoying half with the Primordial Baptismal V-Shap. It does have hydro resistance as well as boosted physical resistance, and it does of course have this special attack where it'll charge up this move which is very obvious to see, which takes 3 years, and it will shoot a water ball which will actually, upon hitting you, drain your energy by quite a decent amount. If you don't have any energy, it will try to drain your health instead, and this will actually apply to you regardless of whether you have a shield or not. But you can of course use certain abilities in order to stagger it out of this move, so that's pretty straightforward. Now the problem with this guy is that he gets staggered way too easily, so in the footage right now, what I try to do is that I try to make him face towards the wall, because he does have a move where it will try to run towards you and does a spin attack, which might put him out of range of certain abilities like the Dendro Traveler's Dendro Lamp. But if you're able to save your certain abilities in this case, you can actually try to stagger it out of its move, and this is usually indicated by him kind of shortly dashing back and ducking down a little bit. It acts as if it's trying to really just run towards you. So if you can try to stagger him out of that move, the rest is pretty straightforward. And then lastly, we do have the Consecrated Horn Crocodile, which spawns directly at the center of the floor. Similar to all consecrated creatures, it starts in an enhanced state with boosted resistance with particularly high hydro res. Once its health is low enough or enough time has passed, it will do this special attack as shown in the video right now, and afterwards it will spawn this phagocytic block. As usual, break the block with elemental attacks, preferably Hydro in 1 hit, or 6 hits for other elements, and then once you break the block, you can hit the Crocodile again, make it lose quite a good bit of HP, resistance, as well as stun it for the next 10 seconds. Now, the rest is pretty straightforward, and if you fail to break it in time, it will reabsorb the block and gain resistance again. Now, for this case, I'm also going to show you the strategy for the second half because it is possible to manipulate the Crocodile's attack pattern if you do these strats. And then now there's a Crocodile. So the strategy is that you want to go to the back of its tail in order to initiate the tail swipe. So just stay here. I'll try to do that. Of course, I do have freeze, so it does tend to move a bit to the back. If you don't have enough stamina, what you can do is basically try to jump around while hitting. And then it does that cringe move. Yeah, this one there's nothing much you can really do. But if you can try to keep it around the middle, you should be fine. So you see how he's constantly trying to like turn around to try to get to you? There you go. And the rest is pretty straightforward. And once you're done, congratulations on your clear. And possibly your 36 stars. So that is it for the guide video. Sorry it took a bit of time. I have some like IRL vacation family thing going on. So hopefully me spending the entire day getting this video down will help a few people along the way if you do want to get the clear or preferably get the 36 stars within your own, capability, of course. But honestly speaking, after watching a bunch of other content creators' guides as well as doing all the different tests by myself on my account, I can safely say that you don't really need the 36 stars. And let's be completely honest, losing 100 Primo Gems for 1 month is not going to kill your account, nor is it enough to even get remotely to a singular pull. So at the very least, if you can't get 36 stars, that's fine. Just try to focus on getting the clears because most of the rewards is actually locked behind you clearing the actual challenge first, and stars are generally an afterthought for those who have well invested characters and a very good account. Other than that, that is it for the video. If you enjoyed this video thoroughly or you find it very helpful, please give this video a like. And if you do want to stick around for more Imaginarium Theatre and Abyss content, and maybe sooner or later we might be getting a new endgame mode in the upcoming patch, I'll probably be making videos on that because that's the point of my channel after all. Please feel free to subscribe. And otherwise, you want to share your thoughts or what teams you ran or what you feel about the current Abyss, leave them down in the comment section below. And I think that is it for now. I wish you guys the best of luck in your future clears or in your days up ahead. And I'll see you guys next time. This is Ethereal, signing off. Peace out, everybody.